Morgan Rogers, Chelsea.
Rogers scores again!
£117 million.
I mean, I don't know that we've had a transfer in the Premier League that's been this shocking.
The moment that fee became public, football stopped talking about the player and started talking about the price.
Even more incredible because we're led to believe that Chelsea have financial issues.
Within minutes, the verdict was everywhere. He's overpriced. Chelsea have done it again. Another panic buy. And that's exactly where the biggest lie about Morgan Rogers' Chelsea move was born. Because this transfer was never really about £117 million. It was about something almost every fan completely missed.
The progression and the way the club wants to go and how it wants to move forward, it's something that I want to be a part of, and I see myself fitting in there nicely, and hopefully it can be a positive experience of moving forward together as a club.
Xabi Alonso didn't push Chelsea to break a British transfer record because Morgan Rogers scores the most goals. He did it because Rogers can do something very few players in world football can.
Morgan Rogers proves that we are trying to build a world-class football team. Morgan Rogers is the statement signing. Morgan Rogers is exactly what we need.
And once you understand what Chelsea actually paid for, that price suddenly starts making a lot more sense. This isn't new. Football does this every single time. Cristiano Ronaldo's move to Real Madrid got called reckless. Gareth Bale's transfer got mocked as a waste of money. Jack Grealish to Manchester City turned into a running joke for 2 years. Even Moises Caicedo walked into Chelsea carrying the weight of his fee before he'd kicked a ball for the club. Every generation does the same thing with its biggest transfer, calls it a rip-off. Then, time makes fools out of everyone who said it. There's a reason this keeps happening, and it's simple. A transfer fee is one number. Anybody can look at it and have an opinion in 5 seconds.
If we had to spend 100 million for Rogers, I really feel like there's a lot more talented players out there that we could have probably get.
Tactical fit isn't like that. Understanding why a player suits a system takes actual work. Watching games, studying patterns, thinking about space. Most people don't do that homework. They don't need to. The fee already gives them something to react to. And with Rogers, the fee had a story attached that made it even easier to react to. Arsenal were in this race. Reports suggested they'd cap their valuation somewhere around 80 to 90 million pounds. Happy to get the deal done at that number and move on.
There was interest from Arsenal, but the 23-year-old attacker wanted Chelsea. Xabi Alonso instrumental.
Chelsea didn't negotiate around that figure. They just paid what it took to win, £117 million, and ended the conversation before Arsenal could respond.
During the World Cup, a deal which we expected Arsenal to make it clear and official in about a week from now, 2 weeks from now, Chelsea come in with no reports about it, no rumors about it, nothing about it over the past couple of days. Just like that, they come in and agree a 117 million for Morgan Rogers.
That's part of what made this feel so jarring. It wasn't dragged out. There was no months-long chase. No will he, won't he. Chelsea reached a verbal agreement with Aston Villa within days.
It's very rare that this happens. I'm almost speechless. When you think about the quality here that Chelsea have signed, that we have got over the line without fanfare, without making a massive noise, without alerting anyone, just getting our business done. This is the most un-Chelsea-like behaviour and un-Chelsea-like signing.
Medical booked, contract signed, announcement made. When a transfer moves that fast, it doesn't feel like a plan. It feels like shock, and shock is exactly the kind of thing that makes people focus on the price tag instead of the player. So, if the fee is the wrong argument, what's the right one? It starts with a problem that sounds almost too basic to matter. Nobody can agree on what position Morgan Rogers actually plays. Ask 10 Aston Villa fans where Rogers plays and you'll get 5 different answers back. Left winger, number 10, second striker. Some will tell you he's a wide 10, whatever that means.
I can't really call him a pure left winger, a pure number 10, a pure right winger, a second striker. he doesn't really fit into any natural position for me, and that's because of the skill set he has.
None of them are wrong, and that's exactly the issue. Watch one single passage of play from his time at Villa and you'll see why.
He's been everything that's been Aston Villa's success. You know, even his goals and assists, and you've seen some of his goals from outside the box over the last 18 months. But just a player who can get a team up the pitch. You know, there's not many players out there who can receive that ball off the left or in that number 10 position, who can drive with the ball and get a team up the pitch. That's what I'm going to miss. His running power, and that opens it up for a lot of other players when you got someone like that.
He starts the move near the touchline, hugging the line like a traditional winger. Seconds later, he's drifted in field, standing between two midfielders, picking up the ball on the half turn. Then he's gone again, sprinting beyond Ollie Watkins like he's a striker and Watkins is the one creating for him.
When he's on the ball, he does actually not really tend to run at top speed, but then when he's off the ball making deep runs down the sides of Ollie Watkins and stuff like that, then you get to see some of the runs he makes, and they become ridiculous runs, and runs that off the ball can be used a lot more.
And just when you think you've placed him, he's dropped 30 yards back into his own half to collect the ball and carry it forward himself. There's no fixed pattern here, because his game was never built around holding a position in the first place. It's built around finding space and attacking it, wherever that space happens to open up. That's exactly why defenders hate playing against him. Step up to close him down and he's already miles beyond you. Sit off and give him room and he'll carry the ball straight into your box. Commit the tackle early. And he shifts past you using pure strength. Wait too long to make a decision and he's gone before you've made one. Part of that comes down to the way he's built. He's 6'2", with long strides that eat up ground without looking rushed. He's not explosive in the way Kylian Mbappe is explosive, all snap and acceleration. Rodgers is relentless instead. Every stride gains a bit more ground. Every carry pushes the defensive line another few yards backward until gaps start appearing where there weren't any before.
His skill set is one that is of a 6'2" stature. He's very lean. He's got unbelievable athleticism and sometimes maybe relies on it too much when it comes to sort of spinning on the ball, the way he can bounce off players, the way he can run at full pelt. Sometimes he puts together pretty ridiculous carries, just ridiculous dribbles where he gets himself cornered in with like 2 or 3 players around him, and he can break through the press.
This is why Xabi Alonso's coaching history actually explains the signing.
The same way he did with Leverkusen, the same way he tried it with Real Madrid in the pre-season, it's how he's going to do it today. They're going to play with 2 10s, and that's going to be Cole Palmer, and that's going to be Morgan Rodgers. Morgan Rodgers on the left, Cole Palmer on the right as the 2 10s behind the striker, which most likely will be Joao Pedro.
At Bayer Leverkusen, Alonso built a team where nobody stayed locked around their label. Jeremy Frimpong started as a wingback, but constantly attacked central areas like an inside forward. Florian Wirtz never sat still at number 10. He floated across the whole final third, looking for space between lines. Alejandro Grimaldo did far more going forward than any normal left-back was expected to do. Alonso doesn't build around positions. He builds around movement and around players who create problems by refusing to stay where they're supposed to be. That's why the Jude Bellingham comparisons have started creeping into the conversation around Rodgers. Nobody's claiming he's at that level yet.
And the reason a lot of England fans were saying yes, he has to be signed ahead of Jude Bellingham, they weren't crazy. I completely disrespect you if you thought that as a football fan based on pedigree or talent, but you could sort of see it as a positional thing that Morgan Rodgers and Jude Bellingham are very similar, all-action, combative playmaker midfielders that can get you a goal in the box, that can drive your team forward, that can show leadership, show confidence, and get you going athletically.
But both players share the same quality that makes them so hard to defend. You can't just assign one man to follow them, because they won't stay in one place long enough for that job to make sense. And once you stop asking where Rodgers plays, you start asking a much more useful question: what he's actually worth to a team. That's exactly where the goals and assists argument starts falling apart. Here's why so many fans get this wrong. They put Rodgers next to strikers and creators. Look at his goals and assists column and decide he doesn't measure up. But that's not what Alonso is buying. Comparing him to a pure number 9 or a chance-creating playmaker misses the entire point of his profile.
Absolutely, this guy will score goals from the middle of the park, and he will do other jobs as well.
Modern football has become obsessed with progression, and that word matters more than any goal tally. Teams want players who can take the ball 30 or 40 yards up the pitch under pressure, because that single action creates the next chance even when it never shows up in a stat column. Nobody writes down, carried the ball past 2 men and forced the centre-back to make a decision, but that action is often worth more than the pass that follows it. Rodgers does this instinctively. He protects the ball with his body, shields it from a defender-first challenge, receives possession under pressure without panicking, and turns what should be a defensive situation into an attack within seconds. That's not a skill you find on a stat sheet, it's a skill you find on a football pitch, over and over, if you're actually watching for it. And here's the scarcity problem nobody talks about. Premier League proven attackers, in their prime, capable of filling 3 or 4 different roles without weakening the team around them, barely exist. There's maybe a handful in the entire league. So when more than one big club wants the same player, the price stops being about that player alone. It becomes about what happens if somebody else gets him instead. Chelsea weren't just buying Morgan Rodgers. They were paying to make sure Arsenal didn't.
It would be such a clear Arsenal signing, and Arsenal have been linked with him for 6 months. It felt like it was a tap-in for Arsenal, and somehow we have got our noses in front. For weeks, we've just heard, not weeks, months, we've heard that Rodgers is on his way to Arsenal, and he's going to be a Chelsea player. Like, this is it.
That's its own kind of value, one that never shows up in a scouting report but shapes every transfer at this level. Because Alonso isn't picturing a transfer fee when he watches Rodgers, he's picturing passing triangles. He's picturing who benefits when Rodgers drifts inside from the left. He's picturing what happens to the space Rodgers leaves behind, and who's supposed to run into it. That's the entire job, not judging a number, but mapping out consequences, 3 and 4 moves ahead. That's the difference between how fans watch a transfer and how a manager actually builds a team. Chelsea didn't spend £117 million because Rodgers is already one of the best players on the planet. They spent it because Alonso believes he's the piece that makes the rest of the plan work. When elite coaches get obsessed with one player, everyone else finds out why later. Subscribe if you want to understand transfers before the headlines catch up to the football. And drop your take on Rodgers in the comments. I want to hear it.